It's time for Supply Chain Now. Broadcasting live from the supply chain capital of the country, Atlanta, Georgia. Heard around the world, Supply Chain Now spotlights the best in all things supply chain. The people, the technologies, the best practices, and the critical issues of the day. And now, here are your hosts.
Hey, good morning. Scott Luton here with you on Supply Chain Now with a whole team. Welcome back to today's show. Today's show, we're continuing our Logistics with Purpose series, which is one of our favorites. This is all about organizations and leaders that are all changing the world in some way, shape, or form. It's powered by our friends over at Vector Global Logistics. And, you know, if you listen close, I promise you're going to be able to increase your supply chain leadership IQ. Quick programming note before we get started. If you enjoyed today's episode, hey, check us out wherever you get your podcast from, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single thing. All right, we've got a screen full of folks, got the whole team here. I want to introduce our co-host first, our fearless, esteemed co-host. We've got Greg White, serial supply chain tech entrepreneur and trusted advisor. Greg, good morning.
Howdy. How are you, Scott?
Doing fantastic.
I'm excited about this. This is 2 episodes, so I don't know if people know how we work, but this is 2 episodes today for Logistics with Purpose. And, you know, we love this series. It's inspiring. It's just great to, I don't know, it's a really impressive testament to how Vector works, that they do business with all of these charitable and give forward type organizations. So it's, I don't know. It's
rewarding for sure.
It's fun. Yeah.
Well put there. And let's join in. Speaking of Vector Global Logistics, we've got Enrique Alvarez, Managing Director with Global. Good morning, Enrique.
Good morning, Scott, Greg, and Moni. Great to see you today, and thanks for having us. I'm excited and looking forward to our conversation today.
Absolutely. And Monica Hernandez, also with Vector. Good morning, Moni.
Hi, good morning to everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be in here today, talking about all these amazing company that we are helping to change the world.
Moni, well put. You know, that's the common thread in this series is these folks that are, like Greg said, and like you're talking about, giving forward. They're innovative. They're changing the world. They're helping others. It's just really, it's been just a hit after hit, inspiring, innovative leadership stories. So we get the impression, doing our homework, that this is going to continue that trend. So with no further ado, let's welcome in our featured guest here today, Shane Bierster, founder of Z Beans Coffee. Shane, good morning.
Good morning to all of you, Scott, Moni, Enrique, Greg. Thanks for having me. Very excited to share the story of Z Beans and to discuss the real benefits that a shared value supply chain can create for all of us.
Love that, man. You got our juices going now.
Prepared.
All right. So before we talk about Z Beans and some of that your professional journey, let's talk more about Shane Bierster, the person. So for starters, tell us where you're from and give us a story or two from your upbringing, Shane.
Sure. So as Scott said, my name's Shane Bierster. I'm 24 years old. I'm from Pooler, Georgia, currently living in Macon, where I've been since I went to Mercer University here in Macon. I graduated the spring of 2018 and started Z Beans actually my junior year of college, which would have been 2017, after going on a Mercer on Mission academic-based trip the summer of 2016. So it's been quite the journey since then. And so a few stories from my upbringing. Entrepreneurship's really always been in my blood. While my father was not an entrepreneur himself, he was always very entrepreneurial within the business which he's worked for. So he's worked for Tubular Steel for the last 40 years, and they've always given him this just massive amount of leeway to really do what he wants to do. And in turn, he's created a supply chain and an operation that is really second to none with, throughout their entire organization. And so, like a lot of young kids and entrepreneurs, started with cutting grass. So, I had 15 yards by the time I was 8, 9 years old. And, we keep up with those regularly. Then it turned into focusing on baseball. And so much of sport, and we can go into this and further detail, but so much of sport is very much entrepreneurship as well, because you really get to control the product aka yourself, that you put out on the field. So always been really interested in entrepreneurship. And when I went to school at Mercer, I wasn't exactly set on being an entrepreneurship major. Rather, I wanted to acquire a skill set that would enable entrepreneurship, knowing that to be successful, I'd ultimately need to be able to build a team around myself. So I was a marketing, economics, and Spanish major at Mercer, which really, fit perfectly into doing international business and working with those in Latin America. So that's a little bit of background about myself. Started from, mowing yards to now being able to sell some coffee.
Love that. All right. So Moni's going to ask you about your professional journey a little bit more in a moment, but two quick follow-up questions. First off, you mentioned some mission work and some mission travel, international travel you took at an earlier age. What was one really important lesson learned from your travels?
So I've only ever went to one place. I've only ever flown to one place, and that's to Ecuador. And so the purpose of our academic-based mission trip with Mercer was to see if coffee was a viable alternative to gold mining. But the way we went about that was we interviewed as many coffee farmers as we could in the El Oro region of Ecuador, and we only had 3 weeks. So, time was scarce. We didn't know anyone, and so we relied upon a tour guide by the name of Angel Arturo Piñareta Romero, who has since become my really good friend. And so we relied on him to get us, to as many plantations as we could. At the end of the 3 weeks, we rationally concluded that we didn't think coffee was a viable alternative to gold mining, just because we didn't think there was enough there. We didn't think there was enough scalability in it. And so effectively, we wrote the project off as a group. But through that, mission trip, I had the real ability to immerse myself into the culture. And as I said, the friendship that I was able to gain with Arturo has since proven invaluable. Because once I returned to the States, as I said, I was a Spanish major. And so it was a real goal of mine to achieve real, fluency and efficiency in speaking the language. And I just couldn't do that only in class. It was so hard for me to get over this concept of messing up and sounding illiterate and speaking in another language. But, one of the things that I found with Arturo is, I didn't really have a choice. If we wanted to communicate, I was going to have to get over this concept of messing up, speak his language so we could talk. And that really helped me, start improving drastically. And when I returned to the States after that initial trip, Arturo and I didn't, have plans to start, coffee business. We were just talking 3 to 4 times a week to, improve my Spanish. But as you can imagine, not really having any topics. There's only so many "Cómo estás?" You can ask.
Right. How is your dog? How many times can you say that? Right.
Right. So it turned to business. But that was really what I found out, and just this real interest in other cultures. The Ecuadorian culture, Zarumian culture specifically, the small town in Ecuador where Arturo lives, where where the original trip went. They're just so welcoming, and the culture is just so different. So it really just spurred my interest for other cultures and wanting to create something in another world, basically.
Outstanding. One last question before we transition. When you're not hard at work at growing your business and spending time with the team and customers, you name it, what do you do in your downtime?
Well, I'll be honest, I don't have too much downtime. And truly, I say that because the business has never been work. When I go to Ecuador now for about 2 months out of every year. And while it is, a little stressful trying to get the coffee out of the country and doing it through our way of direct trade and not, having a cooperative to rely upon, and it really, being upon my own back, I enjoy that so much, the ability to do that. And so I think that's why we've been able to grow as much as we have, just because the business, and I've tried to create that with everyone, within Zeebings now, the 40 teammates that we have is like, what is everyone's interest? Like, how can I create this entrepreneurial spirit within them, though that they're working within Zeebings, which is my entrepreneurial venture, And so that's, it's just a joy. I enjoy watching sports and, doing stuff like that, but really don't have too much time to, do that outside of sleep and work.
And eating sometimes, right?
Yeah,
all right.
Sometimes.
So Monica, let's talk more about Shane's professional journey.
Yeah, Shane, please tell us about your professional journey prior to your current role. In particular, any roles that shaped your worldview.
Certainly. So I haven't had many. I've never worked for another company. You know, I had the yards that I kept up with when I was a young kid. But what I can really say shaped my entrepreneurial spirit was baseball. I chased the game for 20 years. I played it for a year and a half at Mercer. I tore my labrum and my rotator cuff my senior year of high school, which really set me back. I didn't get the scholarship that I wanted, and so I had to walk on to Mercer's team. And so as the story goes, I walked on as a catcher at Mercer. And my freshman year, you know, I really earned my keeps, did a lot of bullpen catching. I got a few at-bats, but I didn't have, you know, many opportunities outside of that. But what I did realize is just how much time I was spending on the game and how valuable my time was becoming. You know, my window was shortening to be able to, get something going while I was in college. And so going into my sophomore year, when I met with the coach, I told him that I wanted the opportunity to play in the outfield, you know, actually get some time to play on the field because we had 2 All-American catchers ahead of me. I knew it wasn't going to happen. And so I returned my sophomore year, and the coaches told me that, going into my sophomore summer, the coaches told me I was going to get this opportunity. They wanted me to slim down, get faster, you know, all right, no worries. And so going into my sophomore year, that's exactly what I did. I come back that sophomore year, I have a meeting with the coaches, and they tell me that I need to catch. And so this point right here in my life is where I thought I can go one or two ways. One, people are going to continue to tell me what I was going to do, though I worked really hard, and I can hold them, you know, to be a man of their word, or give in and just, go about doing whatever, you know, they asked me to do. And so, you know, my thing was I need to hold them accountable. You know, this is what they told me I was going to get the opportunity to do. And, so anyways, I go in there, I tell the coach this, and it's said at the end of the fall that conversation didn't sit well, but, it worked out for the best for myself. I was cut from the baseball team, and then 4 months later, I went down to Ecuador and met Arturo. And so that one, key moment right there, I'm only 24 years old, so I don't have very much professional experience, but that one moment right there where I could no longer go to my father and mother and ask them for advice and help them get me through the, situation, but I had to really do it myself. That's what kind of gave me the experience to be very confident in the decisions I make. I mean, there will never be a no that I may hear if I'm trying to sell my product or, if I have an issue in Ecuador that will ever hurt me as much as having baseball stripped away did. For every young kid that's just given everything to the game, that's all I ever wanted to do, was just play baseball. And so to have that just ripped out and have to make that decision, really, propelled me well to go on and be very confident with the decisions that I make moving forward. So, I know that's not really the perfect answer for the professional experience, but that's what I got.
I think it is, frankly. That's 20 years of your life at 24. Think about that. You must have started with T-ball or coach pitch, right? Yeah. So, that's a significant part of your life. And frankly, as a parent of someone your age, I think that's an incredibly mature decision to make. And the thing that you took away from it that I heard loud and clear was you couldn't lean on your parents for that. Right. That is life-changing. That is transformational as a human being to be able to do that. Right. So, I've often said, baby birds don't fly because they grow wings. They fly because mom pushes them out of the nest. And right. It sounds to me like you didn't even need that push to to that same extent. You learned to fly on your own. And I know not totally on your own, but that moment was pivotal for your life. So I would not minimize that at all. It's important. Clearly you recognize that. I think it is part of your professional journey because it put you on this path that you're on right now. Certainly.
And I think, that'll resonate with any young entrepreneur, especially because there's so many decisions that literally every single day still I'm making decisions on stuff that I've never experienced before, you know, so I have to just be confident and trust in the decision that I've made. Like I don't, you know, have a program to go from for another business that I may have worked in to know that this is the right direction to go. However, I have to be confident because, you know, one of my mentors has told me, calm is contagious. And when everyone looks to me to make sure, hey, is the 35-pound shipment going to get in on time because we're running low on coffee? Yeah, of course it will. You know, like that and that confidence with which I have to act is it's contagious, and everyone feeds off of it.
So, Monica, we're curious about what other revelation he's had, right?
Could you please tell us what has been a key Eureka moment for you?
Certainly.
So you shared a big one, Shane, already. Clearly that was an epiphany.
That one's a pretty big one. Yes. I was going to say.
I think one of the, as a young boy growing up in Savannah, Georgia, we always had, the port in Savannah is one of the largest on the East Coast, if not the largest now. I know they just treasured it. But I would always see the big boats, coming in as a young kid. And so I'm always just kind of like, man, what in the world is, on those boats, And so, perhaps this wasn't Eureka, but certainly the coolest moment that I've experienced so far is the first time where I had the opportunity to work with Vector and get our first container in. It was only 14,000 pounds. It wasn't even halfway full, barely came up 2 stacks high. But nonetheless, it came in. And so I remember sitting there at the on Bay Street in Savannah and seeing the boat come in. I knew which vessel it was on, and it was a Sunday, and so everything was pretty much closed down near the ports. And so we had went, I saw the boat come in, and so we went over there. I was with my girlfriend, and we went and looked at the container and trying to find like which container it was. It was by far the coolest moment of my entire life. Thinking that, man, that boat was something as a young kid that I just marveled at and wondered what exactly it was. But another story that is probably the biggest, another Eureka moment is, it's my this would have been, my junior year of college. I'm sitting in my dorm room with my friends, and we were just bringing in a 300-pound shipment. So this was before I was introduced to Vector. There's a 300-pound shipment coming in from Ecuador. Arturo was sending 3, 100-pound bags of coffee. And it came into the port of Miami, but I didn't know anything about customs brokers. I didn't know anything about freight forwarders. And so it just came in. And I got a call from someone at the ports. I'm not exactly sure what, why they called or what possessed them to actually want to help me out. But I got a call, and someone said, hey, we have a package here. Do you have a customs broker and a freight forwarder to receive it on your behalf so we can clear it through customs? And I'm just kind of like, what in the world is that? Like, where do I find one of those? And I'm not kidding. The guy said, Google it, and hung up on me. And so I typed it in like freight forwarders Miami or like customs brokers Miami, and I found this one called Benny Express at that time that could just help me find a way to get it to me. So needless to say, that was the most expensive 300 pounds of coffee in the world. But nonetheless, I quickly learned about freight forwarders and customs brokers, and it's really just kind of symbolic for the whole growth of Z-Bean so far. Everything is venturing into unknown territory, and so you just kind of learn by doing, and the greatest teacher in the world's experience. And so I just do it and, learn from it. But that's probably one of the greatest ones, because it's by far the most beneficial piece of knowledge I have now is, to utilize customs brokers and freight forwarders appropriately.
What a great story. And Greg, I know we're about to dive into Z-Bean's coffee, but real quick, that going back to his first Eureka moment about seeing his container coming in. Savannah is really cool in that when you're down there on River Street, you feel like you're like an arm's length to these massive ships. And even, I'll tell you, not having ever had anything on that I've shipped in via one of those containers, I'm mesmerized every time when we're down in Savannah. The kids love it to see these massive ships that make global supply chain happen. Come right. Just almost, you can almost jump on one, it feels like, because it's just that close and it's massive.
Well, they are massive. And, if you've ever been on River Street, River Street, for anyone who doesn't know Savannah, is a huge party area. It's kind of like the French Quarter
right.
of Savannah. And people are walking up and down that street all the time, sometimes stumbling. But what's amazing is there are hundreds, thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of people on this street. But when one of those big ships comes through, the whole place stops and turns towards the river. And it's amazing the universality of the fascination with those ships. And it's like the toys you played with as a kid, life size.
Yes.
And
and it's right there, unlike many other ports where you can't be right there at it. Savannah is unique in that regard. So if anyone's listening, you haven't been to Savannah, make the trip, especially if you love supply chain, because you can see it front and center.
Yeah.
If you love supply chain or if you love taffy, go to the Savannah Candy Company, by the way.
No, it's a great story. I mean, I think it just makes it real. I mean, here at Vector, the first container we moved as well, despite the fact that we didn't really see it. It was not, we didn't go to the port where it was going to be. But I totally relate to your story, Shane, in the sense that it just makes it so real when you know that your product is inside that container. And it's just it's a big milestone, because a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs might have great ideas, but they never really go through the process of making them happen. So I think that going from your trip to Ecuador at one point and meeting Arturo and becoming good friends to having the idea to actually seeing coffee inside a container heading your way, I think that's great. And yeah, congratulations. Very few kind of entrepreneurs take it that far. So
yeah.
So you're definitely an inspiration for a lot of the younger entrepreneurs out there that are kind of want to be like you at some point. And what would you tell them, just briefly? I mean, what would be your advice? How do you go from baseball to, hey, my first container coming to the port?
Certainly. And my favorite book that I've ever read, and it's almost cliche now because it's so good, is Simon Sinek, Start With Why. That baseball always gave me that purpose, always gave me that why in my life that, was fulfilling, and what, permitted me to want to work countless hours on it and stay focused on it, stay disciplined. Zevians has done the same thing. As soon as I met Arturo and started meeting the farmers and, really started getting to know the farmers and one of the stories, when I was down in Ecuador on that initial trip, I was with Arturo and my professor, Dr. Saravia, and we were interviewing one of the farmers. And so we're walking up to the plantation, and it's Wednesday, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, like everyone should certainly be in school. There was a young boy, probably 8 or 9 years old, swinging a machete, just cleaning the shrubs around the coffee plantation. So we walked up, and, Arturo goes, "Donde está tu papá?" Like, where's your father? And so he calls his father over, and we interview the farmer and his young son. And just like that, we leave. We're walking up, leaving the plantation, and I'll never forget it. Like, it's ingrained in my image and in my mind. There was this deflated soccer ball that was at the end of the fence, and that soccer ball just immediately hit me that, like, man, if that were my baseball, I'd be playing with it. Instead, he's worried about putting food on the table. He's not able to go to school. And so it just, it really saw like the privilege with which I lived, like how much it cut me to lose baseball. Like, man, what a real privilege it is to be worried about losing baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he's this young boy is worried about putting food on the table. Like, I've never had to worry about putting food on the table. My mom would shoot me a text and say, "Hey, dinner's ready when you get home," and I'd be in the cage hitting baseball. So it's, it really just opened my eyes. And, once I established that why of like, man, this is something certainly greater than myself, something greater than I've ever been able to do. I mean, and if I can measure my success, and then in one day that farmer being able to potentially say, "Hey, my son has been able to graduate high school," or "My son has been able to go to college." The average farmer's son's dropping out in 4th grade to help his father on the farm. Farmers were literally telling us that they have sons to help on the plantation. That is the purpose. And so that just stuck with me. And that's always been the driving factor of the why. And so, while we may have success bringing in containers or opening up a new coffee shop, or whatever it may be, that's just never like gratifying enough to just want to stop. Like the ultimate measure of my own personal success with Z-Beans is let's try and get a farmer's son through high school. That would be a life well lived. So that's what I would have to say. Find that why, and don't be afraid to be brutally honest with yourself. When I had to come to the realization, like, man, you were quite privileged to be able to worry about losing baseball. That hurt, but it was the honest truth.
At the same time, I think about your first container, right? And you knew what your why was then. I assume your first container is like hoisting the World Series trophy for the first time as a ball player. If you think about it, right? It's the moment you never really thought about when it would come or whether it would come or what you would do when it came. But when it did, every bit as excited, I'm sure, as winning a trophy, any trophy you won in baseball as a kid. So you have done a great job, clearly, of transferring that lifelong desire for baseball into a lifelong desire for giving. And I think it's really commendable, particularly because you spent so much of your life playing baseball. And I think that's a great example. If you lose something that important to you, find something else to channel that energy into. And, don't, once you've given up on your dream, right, find a new dream to go after. And I think that's an important lesson to learn here already. And I think we're about halfway through the episode. So I feel like this one's every bit as much learning as we had with Joel Manby this morning, right? So
yeah, and then you're a great storyteller too, Shane. So it's making it incredibly energizing, I guess.
So we've talked about kind of epiphanal and eureka moments and that sort of thing, but I want to hear about Z Coffee and what it's all about and what it does, but I have to know this. So I'm going to go off script a little bit here, Shane. I have to know how you and Arturo got from four phone calls a week to talking about business to turning it into a business. How did that happen? How did it become a business?
So, we are talking 4 times a week, and eventually those phone conversations turn into like, let's start a business together. He knows I'm interested in entrepreneurship. He knows that I'm a economics, marketing, and Spanish major and want to do work in Latin America. And so that was a common theme. Like, he knew that that's what I wanted to do. And Arturo, Arturo's not a farmer. Arturo had worked in agriculture. So he's a 65-year-old man who had worked in agriculture, since he was a young kid. And so when Arturo and I started talking, he revisited this concept of coffee. And I told him, I was just like, Arturo, the issue is there's not enough coffee. And so Arturo's first challenge of the many, millions of challenges he's now given to me and told me to figure out myself is he said, well, why in the world would we just import from El Oro when we can import from all over the country? Where we can export coffee from Ecuador, from towns all over the country, to the States. And so, when he said that, I said, well, that makes sense. As a whole, Ecuador produces far more coffee than what I could ever do with, especially for the first 20 years of the business. And so 3 months later, 65 pounds of coffee arrived at my parents' doorstep in Pooler. And I get a call from my mom. What in the heck have you gotten into? There's 65 pounds of these green looking beans from Ecuador. And I was like, oh, no, Ma, it's completely fine. It's just coffee and it's from Arturo. And so she was like, all right, well, so I went, got them roasted and gave it away. And everyone really, really enjoyed it. And so as I started doing some research on Ecuadorian coffee, I realized that it's not very popular here in the States, just because these cooperatives, which the coffee game really utilizes to help with logistics, to help with marketing, there's not many in Ecuador. And farms are so spread out based on the geography of Ecuador. Loja, Ecuador is a big coffee producing region, but we get coffee from Las Lajas, which is far southern Ecuador, 30 minutes north of Peru, all the way up to Ibarra, which is 30 minutes south of Colombia. And so the logistics behind how a cooperative really can work efficiently, it's just not there, in Ecuador. And so, this game and this kind of like chess, this game of chess and this puzzle that we had to start piecing together is what became really interesting to me. Like, man, how can we do this? And so, anyways, I get that 65 pounds in, and I had some money saved up. So I purchased that 300 pounds that I've already told you the story about. And so that 300 pounds comes in, and then that's how I learn about customs brokers and freight forwarders. And then after that 300 pounds, I started selling. I sold, a good bit of that, and everyone really enjoyed it. And then from there, I got my first loan from an angel investor, which, very grateful, is my uncle, my father's side, who was an entrepreneur himself. And so I wrote up a business plan, and I submitted it to him, and I asked them to completely pick it apart. Let me know everything that you dislike about it that worries you. And so this business plan had nothing to do with building a retail brand. The whole concept was just, sourcing green coffee beans from Ecuador and flipping them here in the States. And so Uncle Phil gets back to me 2 days later, and he has one question. And I said, well, what's that? He said, can you trust him? And so our direct trade supply chain, still to this day, we don't operate off of exclusivity contracts. A lot of it's shaking hands and just operating through this principle of shared value, doing right by others. And, as I've told Uncle Phil at that time, and as I still say today, is as long as it's more advantageous for all of us to work together, why would we, ever go behind each other's backs? And so I've just made sure to set up our supply chain to where it's advantageous for us all to work together, and so that's what I told him. And then I said, Uncle Phil, I need $30,000. I want to buy 4,000 pounds of coffee. Can you help me out? And, thankfully he was able to loan me the money, and was able to purchase the first 4,000 pounds. And so when I brought that 4,000 pounds in, and I actually brought it in by plane, horrible idea because it was
a little bit expensive.
I sold that my whole senior year of college. And so I would just go door knocking on businesses' doors, just trying to sell the coffee any way possible. But all along, I was trying to build a team, start adding people to the team that complemented my skill set. Like, where was I deficient, and where can I add? And so, thankfully, I was able to add, 2 key partners. One's now the chief operations officer of all of our coffee shops, and one's now our chief financial officer. And so, then from there, I met a girl who started doing our graphic design, who's our chief marketing officer. And so, we just started adding pieces to the team and adding accounts slowly but surely. And then upon graduating after my senior year, we opened our first coffee shop. And so really just from there, just growing, and the more I've, grown to understand the supply chain and how to source coffee from Ecuador, the easier that aspect has become. And the more confident I've become in doing it. So that's really how we've been able to get from, that ground up of phone calls to now where we are today.
So is the company today, is it predominantly coffee roasting for other shops, or is it your own shops?
Yeah, so we have 4 coffee shops, okay, and we also have a wholesale sector of the business. And so one of the things I did early on is I split the business into 2, knowing that each would grow at different rates, and that, intrinsically I will always be attached to the wholesale side of the business. And so the coffee shops, they're run as coffee shops, and then the wholesale side, we do private labeling where we roast for other companies. We also sell some green coffee beans, but, in regards to that selling of the green coffee beans, why I deviated away from it was because, as I said, I brought that 4,000 pounds of coffee in by plane. That was extremely expensive green coffee beans. And when I started giving those samples out to other roasters, I quickly realized that there have to be non-negotiables in business, but most importantly, there have to be non-negotiables in life. When they started, they would ask what the price is, and I told them, they would say, man, I'm normally buying coffee at under $2. And I said, well, I'll never pay a farmer less than $2 in Ecuador. And so it's a non-negotiable for our business. All the coffees are specialty coffees, but we don't pay, no farmer receives any less than $2 per pound. because again, that kind of goes to this transparency and to the trust. I mean, I need each of the farmers and each of our partners to trust me just as much as I need to be able to trust them. And one thing that we have them do is we have them submit over like what's their cost of goods sold, you know, because sustainability needs to go both ways. I need to have a sustainable business here. They need to be sustainable. And so they'll submit in, you know, their cost of goods sold. So Milton Rebody Nada, his coffee cost him $1.20 last year, and we had purchased his coffee at $2.40 a pound. And so these sorts of margins, though he's at the very bottom of the supply chain supplying the raw material, he still has the ability to grow, but so too do we, you know. And so it didn't bode well trying to flip the green coffee beans, because that'll never be the business that I'm in, you know, just because at the end of the night I have to, you know, live with myself, and I'm the one that has to sleep knowing what I do. And so that was okay. Uncle Phil has grown to understand, and people have appreciated that, you know, transparency and, you know, the social mission behind that.
And the roasting is the value add you can provide that allows you to give the margin to your farmers, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, brilliant. That's a great transition of the business to meet your why, right? Yeah. Well, it sounds like we've learned a little bit about what you do all day, but you know, CEO, it seems like there ought to be more letters in CEO, because you know, you're in front of 3 CEOs right now, and not one of us does the exact same thing, and even in different businesses, we haven't done the same thing in those businesses. So tell us a little bit about what CEO means in your world today.
Yeah. So well, first and foremost, I am incredibly grateful now for the team that we have. As I said, my whole goal all along is creating entrepreneurial spirits within everyone. Like, how can I get everyone to have this mindset of being a CEO within their realm of the business? Mm-hmm. And you know, this will relate to another question that I know y'all ask later, but the biggest thing that we discuss is trust and accountability. You know, like I trust in everyone to do their job well. Thus, you know, I will trust them, but I'll also verify, you know, that they're doing a good job. So really it's, you know, my day-to-day is focusing on expansion. You know, I like to say, you know, to the guys when we're around, CEO for me means Chief Expansion Officer. And so any ability to try and expand and to find new opportunities is what I think I'm pretty good at. You know, and our operations officer, Carter Varga, he's fantastic, and really wears a lot of the burden that comes with issues we may have in the coffee shops, you know, that we may have with HR or on the inventory side. And so it's, you know, a fantastic team. And I mean, I could only be as successful as Z-Beans can only be as successful as our team is. And so, you know, my ultimate role is expansion, trying to find new opportunities for us, and trusting our team to be able to do everything else.
That's amazing. Hey, real quick before I ask Moni to share about your company, where are your shops?
Okay, so all of our shops currently are in Middle Georgia. All right, we have 3 in Macon, Georgia, and again, this is, you know, where we started the business. We have aspirations to start trying to grow outside of it, and then we have 1 coffee shop in Columbus, Georgia.
Okay.
And so we're developing these kiosks inside of hospitals, and so 2 of the kiosks are inside hospitals. You know, partnering with other social mission, like-minded organizations that create real congruency and really put us in a almost an incubation space with customers. And then our wholesale facility is in downtown Macon as well.
Awesome. Thanks. Moni, I know you work with Shane and the crew pretty frequently, and I'm sure you know a lot about their story. So I'd love to hear, I think our listeners would love to hear what you admire about Shane and the company, and, you know, some of their story or the organization that really stands out to you.
Wow. Well, I think all the history is amazing and very motivational for all the persons that are now hearing this history. And I think that the most that I admire, is that at his age, how long has been he had grow up. You know, I think that a lot of people cannot think as the same as he thinks now. Maybe sometimes that age we just think about going to party or going with friends, you know. And I know now he's just doing, making an impact in the world, you know. And I found that Vector can match with Seed Beans company because one of our purpose here at Vector is also to change the world. And I think that to change the world, you need to give a little bit of your best work or best job to the people, you know. So I think that for Shane, the most important thing is not to have money, you know. It's to help people and to help all the farmers in Ecuador, and to have some grateful, you know, that for that people there. So for Vector, is really a pleasure to work with him because it's an amazing history, you know.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And I'm hopeful that you're saving him a pile on importing and freight forwarding as well, because he should not be left to those decisions. Clearly, Moni, take good care of him.
Yeah, no, I would like to say if you know, just take some time to thank Vector, because and explain how, you know, came into contact with them and the real need that they have filled in the business. So one of the difficult things about our direct trade supply chain is, as I said, like, it's very much been left up to myself to try and build our logistics team and to be able to consistently get product out of Ecuador. And so one of the biggest things is Marie and Fabricio Paredes, they actually live in Piñas, Ecuador, and that's where our processing facility is. And so the simplicity behind our supply chain is we literally have the farmers get their coffees down to the processing facility. And then at the processing facility, we process everything down. We get a container from the port city of Guayaquil to Piñas, and then from there it returns to the ports and ships to Savannah. So I like to think about it in those layman's terms. Like, I need it to be as simple as possible for not only myself, but also for Marie and Fabricio, who are not, you know, exporters. You know, they don't exactly know. And so we have an agent in Ecuador that is really good friends with Marie and Fabricio named Enrique. And so Enrique has been a tremendous help. He, you know, helped us get the original 65 pounds of coffee out of the country. But Marie and Fabricio just feel so confident in working with them. You know, they have this thing called a token where he can just sign anything he needs on their behalf. And that's how they prefer for it to work. And so one of the biggest things that I was worried about, like finding an agent in the States, is like, all right, I know we're, you know, a really unique concept here. Like, we have an agent in Ecuador that's really a non-negotiable. Like, I need you have to work with him, you know what I mean, for this whole thing to work. And not only that, you know, he can only speak Spanish. And so I needed to find a way to connect, you know, these two links perfectly, and then also with Z-Beans. And so, you know, obviously I would say I'm a 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 in speaking Spanish. I'm very confident in doing it. But when it comes to the nitty gritty and on the back end, like, I prefer to be delivered the tough news or like the really difficult info in English. And so just Vector really just meshed all of this, you know, together perfectly, you know. And so when it comes down to every summer and it's time to import, you know, I simply, you know, tee up an email, creating a new email thread. I mean, I was going through them just yesterday, looking at all the ones for the previous years, and it's just one long email thread for the whole import that year. And so, you know, I'm incredibly grateful for that and their ability to be malleable themselves, you know, and to fit within our supply chain. That's, you know, that's really, really helped us.
Yeah, that's what we've seen. I mean, you know, we know Enrique as a friend, as a fellow board member on logistics, on the logistics summit here in Georgia, and that sort of thing. And we've learned a lot about Enrique and Moni and the rest of the team at Vector. And I don't mean to turn this into an ad, but frankly, they facilitate business in the way that what we've seen over and over and over is they facilitate business in the way that their client needs it.
That's right.
Well, and I really think it's just more working with people like Shane, right? So, and I'm just going to flip this back to you, Shane, because it's very similar to the example you gave about you kind of, you don't feel like you're working, you're just enjoying what you do. And I think it just, for us, Eureka moment a couple of years ago is we can pick who we work with, right? And so we started this series and we started to be a bit more picky and we started to select the clients that we want to work with. And honestly, we're working with people that believe in what we believe, right? So we want to change the world. It's incredibly naive if you just say it out loud, but we truly believe in that. And I think that working with companies like you and just sharing the same values just makes our days a lot more enjoyable. And we believe that we can give more impact and change the world faster if we just partner with you. And you put it like very, very well, right? It's just, as long as everyone's benefiting from this, the world will be a better place, right? And so for us, yes, we love working with you. And of course, one thing that I really admire about you and your company is just your passion and commitment and just awareness. And Moni mentioned a little about someone your age, and I'm just going to expand that a little bit, because honestly, that same message that you're giving to other people, it's applicable to everyone. I mean, me included, and I'm not your age, clearly. But I think you can definitely teach a lot of entrepreneurs out there, regardless of their ages. So thank you very much for being so mindful and so clear and transparent about what you're all about. I think we need more business leaders like that.
Agreed. And Enrique is actually 26, so he just got you about a couple of years there. Shane.
Yeah, just a couple of years.
It's the beard. I need to shave.
But so not that we're outsiders per se, because we certainly feel to be part of the Vector community, and we've really seen that firsthand from this Logistics with Purpose series. But Greg, hearing Shane and Monica and Enrique share perspective on how they view the world, I mean, is a natural synergy. And
you're right.
It kind of doubles down on what Enrique was just saying about picking and choosing where there is kindred spirits, when you can. So that's certainly been part of our journey, at least part of my entrepreneurial journey. One of my most favorite aspects of that. And it's beautiful to see it play out from a supply chain standpoint, being a supply chain nerd I am. And I love hearing all three of y'all talk about the relationship and the impact you're having together, working together. So, all right. So Enrique, I know we also want to, Shane's already touched on some of the things outside the business, but we want to continue down that path as we start to wind down the interview.
Yes, right? No, definitely. And I guess it's been a challenging year, to say the least, right? Tons of different things happening. And so as an entrepreneur, as a business leader, how do you manage these times, I guess, broadly put? What happened to your coffee shops? Did you have to close them? What's the impact in Ecuador? How are the people in Ecuador fearing with the pandemic? I mean, what can you tell everyone out there that maybe doesn't know as much about Ecuador? And then also, what are you personally keeping track of more closely? Is it whatever indicator that you want to share with us?
Sure. Yeah. The Ecuador is hit really hard, especially Guayaquil, the port city that we utilize. And Ecuador is such a communal culture. Like when we go there, we're constantly around 10, 15 people. And from what we understand and what I understand about, the virus, what we've been told is that's completely counterintuitive to preventing the spread of it. And so it just as a byproduct really hindered their culture and really hit it hard. And so it's like for Arturo, I know he has not left his house in quite some time. I mean, he's an older gentleman, certainly lives a pretty hard life, and I've been worried about him. But I trust that he's gonna make the right decisions, and I trust that he knows the value that he brings to Z-Beans, but most importantly to his family. And so, we've talked every single day. And what's funny is out of all of them, out of everyone that I've been worried about in Ecuador, I was the one that ended up getting sick. So they've been fine. And so now Arturo keeps calling me like, how do you feel? How do you feel? And so that I'm grateful for that. And when it first happened, one of the most difficult conversations I ever had to have was with all of our baristas at our coffee shops. And I told them all that unfortunately we were going to have to put everyone on unemployment. There was just no way that, I foresaw us being able to keep up with cash flow, knowing how much demand was going to be stricken. But fortunately, as I said, we have an incredible team. And Carter, our CFO, and Carter, our COO, and Ben, our CFO, we sat down and each had a conversation. They said, listen, don't want any money. You go work one shop, I'll work another, and I'll work the other. And so for almost a month, every single day. We logged every hour in those coffee shops. Didn't shut the shop down once, and didn't take a dime out of the business. I mean, we had some days where we made $55, and we had other days, as soon as it started getting a little bit better. But no matter what, we were able to keep paying our landlords. We didn't fall behind there, and we were able to be diligent with the opportunities that came about, through the Triple P and the EIDL. And so, we put ourselves in a position to stay afloat and to stay alive, And so I will forever be indebted and grateful for their friendships and for their hard work, and their trust and commitment they have to Z-Beans. But, moving forward, one of the key words and the indicators of our success and ability to be successful, and I encourage for entrepreneurs interested in working in international landscapes, is trust. Like, I can't stress enough how important the word, trust is in a supply chain. Because sure, we could document every single thing. I can have a contract signed by every farmer. But when it comes down to it, if a true, just an authentic relationship, I mean, I have the phone numbers, WhatsApp numbers of every farmer. Like today, I received a message at 9:30 from Diego Haya from Las Lajas that he was 5 minutes out from the processing facility in Piñas about to drop off the coffee. I mean, these sorts of authentic relationships, why would I ever have a reason to not trust? They're friends, just like Carter and Ben is, though they're 5,000 miles away, to put in the time and, spend 2 months in Ecuador and just, invest time. That's helped our supply chain be able to overcome the coronavirus. This will be the first year where I'm not able to get into Ecuador to export the coffee. And we're also exporting the most coffee we've ever exported, but I've received a call from every farmer to ensure that, hey, everything's fine. Arturo said everything's fine, Maria and Fabricio. And so I have no reason not to trust that it's going to turn out just fine, and it's certainly not easy, and trust is certainly earned. But I do think as the entrepreneur yourself, it's your responsibility to go and be willing to build that trust, Another book by Simon Sinek, cliche, Leaders Eat Last. One part of eating last is taking the time to build the relationships that will allow you to eventually eat one day. If I think, having 2 months every year is probably a real overkill to spill in Ecuador. Does it hurt our expansion here in the States? Certainly, because no one can, truly go and talk about the business with the same passion that I can, when trying to open new accounts or whatever it may be. And I understand that, but also understand that, it takes a lot of time and a lot of maintenance to maintain those relationships, and you don't want to forsake that.
Wow. All right. Let me digest that. You shared so much good stuff there. We need to have an additional hour to dive into a lot of just what Shane shared in the last 3 or 4 minutes. But Shane, what a remarkable journey, especially at this early age you've already led. I know we'll all be here, putting our finger on the pulse of what's next for Z-Beans Coffee. Let's make sure folks know, and Monica and Enrique and Greg, fair warning, I'm going to come back around and ask you for your one favorite aspect of what Shane shared. So there's your warning. Shane, let's make sure folks can connect with you. Let's make sure they can, purchase Z-Beans Coffee, visit your stores. What's the best way to connect with you and the company?
Certainly. And so zbeanscoffee.com is our website. On there, there's hundreds of blogs that I've written about my adventures in Ecuador. Early on, Z-Beans, was very small, and it only meant a lot to one person, and that was, well, perhaps two, myself and Arturo. And so, I wanted to be able to look back on it one day and, realize how far I've come. Whether or not it's successful, it isn't important. It's, being able to see all that I've done. And so there are tons of blogs you can read on there as well. You can see our product. We ship, all over the States regularly on a daily basis. We have, medium dark roast coffees, but we also import natural, honey processed. We do a create your own blend where you can blend your own. So, it's a specialty coffee. It's a specialty product. And, but most importantly, what we do behind every single one of our products is we put a face behind every cup. And so every time you receive a coffee, you're going to learn everything there is to know about your farmer, his plantation's coordinates, fun facts about them, altitude level, processing methods. And so that's one thing that we're trying to do to distinguish it. These relationships that I've been very fortunate and blessed to be able to build with them, trying to relay those on to you. And so then if you go to our social media platforms at ZBeans Coffee on Facebook, Instagram, wherever, I actually, when we make posts regularly, we will tag farmers. And so you'll have the ability to, reach out to your farmer. We highly encourage them and show them how to,
That's
get
great.
Facebook, Instagrams, and, trying to create a truly personal connection and relationship with them. You can also email me, shane.bierster@zbeanscoffee.com. I welcome all emails. I have a good bit of filters, and so if it's spammy, it'll go to spam. But I welcome all emails. So shane.bierster@zbeanscoffee.com, @zbeanscoffee across all our platforms, and zbeanscoffee.com for our website.
Outstanding. We're going to put an order in today. We're going to find out which of our team members here at Supply Chain Now, which love coffee and which don't. Yeah, or we could drive to Macon. That's an even better idea, Greg.
Right.
Or Columbus, right, Shane?
Columbus.
Shane, beyond the perspective you shared, just the passion and energy and your intentional purpose that you bring to the conversation is overwhelming. Our cup overrunneth, and that's hey, that's the rewarding part about our journey is meeting and getting stories, amplifying stories like this. So thanks so much for what you bring to the table, but don't go anywhere.
Okay.
Because we're gonna go around the horn and we're gonna see what everyone else loved about what you brought to the table today. And so we're gonna start with Enrique and we'll go to Monica next. Enrique, what's your one big favorite thing from Shane?
Well, tons of really good learning experiences and good suggestions and just good ideas in general. Like you can clearly tell just by listening to Shane for a couple of minutes that he's just incredibly authentic, right? I mean, he means every word he says. He's the real thing. And I think that's actually, again, very refreshing. And the world needs more leaders like that, people that are not afraid to just tell the story the way it happened without kind of sugarcoating it or without any kind of agenda behind it. And so for me, the way you explain how baseball was kind of stripped away from you and I can relate because I'm still trying to make the Mexican soccer national team. So I still need to probably, so you're so far ahead of me when it comes to that maturity level. But no, that story was great. And the way you handle it, it's just, it's amazing. Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Love it. And we'll be, Enrique, we're pulling for you. If you need,
not Qatar, the next one. I'll definitely make the next one.
Well, I'd offer you all of my soccer expertise, but that'd be a very short conversation. That's right. I just did. All right. So Monica, what an inspiring story here. I'm jealous of you. You get a chance to work and help companies like this day in and day out. What was your favorite component of the conversation today?
Oh, I think it's very inspirational to listen a story like this, someone like this that is really commitment with all the people and with his own company, And again, I am impressive about his story and about how he's growing up, because I think I remember the first shipment with us was an LCL shipment, and now it has been full containers, So the moment that he told us that when he received the first container, I cannot imagine me doing that, I cannot imagine how happy I could feel looking my container arriving, at that moment. So I think it's really inspirational for everyone that is listening now.
Love it. Outstanding. All right, Greg, let's conclude this roundabout with you. What's one big thing that stood out?
Well, if you give me one, I'm going to take two.
Yes.
The first one is what Moni just said and how engaged she is in the success of Shane and his team, how inspired and tied into what they're doing is and how much it means to her for them to be successful. I think that is commendable. And not that we wouldn't expect it, but I'm not sure that everyone out there listening can understand just how engaged Enrique and his team get with their customers. And in addition to that, I would echo a bit of what Enrique said, and the level of maturity, Shane, that you show, and the amount of introspection, I think, is the biggest thing. When I think about how you've internalized so much of what you've learned and how you can express it, as Enrique said, his level of maturity is he hasn't let go of the Mexican national team. My level of maturity is it's exceedingly difficult for me to tell people how I've done things as a leader, and that you're able to enunciate that is not only, it doesn't only help your business today, but I really think it's something you should consider in the future sharing with the world, because that's so valuable for other leaders.
Yeah, we want to read your book, Shane.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, you could publish all those blog articles. You got a book
true.
ready to go.
You already have half of it. Yep.
Yeah. I didn't realize how much those blogs would eventually, grow to mean to me. And now it's I always committed to myself. I would never write those blogs if it felt like a burden. If I felt like I was just trying to get it in really quick, I wouldn't do it. And so I've been away from them for a little bit, but inevitably I always return when I'm looking for that need to be introspective, and to it's certainly a need that I have, and I'm very grateful that I have the ability to fulfill it myself, and to have the experiences to be able to do it. But yeah, I enjoy those blogs.
Outstanding. We look forward to sharing a couple. In fact, our team's already found Z Beans Coffee on Twitter. And to our audience, you can also find Shane Bierster and the whole Z Beans Coffee team at zbeanscoffee.com and across social media, as he just shared. Shane, thanks so much for taking time out and letting us feel a part of your story here today. And hopefully our audience enjoyed it as much as our team here did.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much, Shane. Yeah, no, this was great.
All right. Shane Bierster, founder of Z Beans Coffee, zbeanscoffee.com. Also want to thank Enrique Alvarez and Monica Hernandez with our friends and partners over at Vector Global Logistics. Folks, Monica and Enrique, I love what y'all bring to the table, these stories and your culture. I know that y'all don't ever want to make this a commercial, but really y'all's culture just
you guys got to try harder.
Yeah.
Well, you don't want to make it one, but we do.
We do. Because we believe, we believe in this journey. We believe in what you're doing. It speaks to us in the right way and a certain level. And hopefully in our little neck of the woods, being able to put our little spotlight that we're growing and investing in every day on these stories, these journeys, these companies out there changing the world. And it is so rewarding to be part of it. So thank you to you both. And you can learn more about Vector at vectorgl.com, right, Enrique?
Right. That's correct. And no, thank you too as well, Scott and Greg. I think it's very important that you give voice to leaders like Shane. I think that's very, very valuable, especially these days. So thank you both for kind of just being the medium for in which everyone else can share some of their experiences, because it's very exciting and entertaining and very educational as well.
You bet. You said it.
Thank you.
You said it. It's all about giving voice to the industry, giving voice to global supply chain leaders and organizations within it. So thank you so much. Greg, what a home run morning, but certainly a home run conversation here today. Did you enjoy it as much as I did or more?
I feel like we need to connect Shane and Joel Manby. Yeah, I've of course enjoyed it. I mean, this has been a great morning, and I'm not going to say anything more great about Vector because I'm afraid Enrique will hit me. But I really enjoy this, and it's energizing to see this, and it's great to see young people, young professionals, whatever people. It's great to see people who have a purpose higher than the business. For it. Basically, Shane he's saving the world $1.20 a pound at a time, right?
$2.40, I think it is.
Well, I mean, but he's putting $1.20. That's the way I look at it into their pocket, right? Yes. I mean, making sure that they make 100% margin is critical, and it's what enables, embeds the trust in Shane from his growers, and it's what enables him to be able to trust them, is because they know that he is out for their best.
That's right. Well put. On that note, to our audience, hopefully you've enjoyed this as much as we have. You can learn more about our programming at supplychainnowradio.com to hear more stories just like Shane and Z Beans Coffee. Find us and subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. Hey, the challenge we put out to our audience, same challenge we challenge ourselves with, do good, give forward, be the change that's needed. Hey, drink more coffee too, because you help folks around the world, as illustrated with a story here. On that note, we'll see you next time here on Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.